Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're going to descend into the chilling world of a seemingly simple children's horror book to really uncover its dark psychological core. So yeah, let the haunting begin. Okay, let's just start with a question, one that really sits at the heart of this entire story. What if your clothes remembered everyone who wore them before? I mean, what secrets, what emotions, what terrors might be woven right into the very fabric of the stuff we find? It's a chilling thought, and this book answers it in, well, the most unsettling way possible.
So the book we're diving into is Creepy Clothes by M.D. Spenser. It's actually book number 30 in the Shivered series. Now, this came out way back in 1997, and yeah, it's a supernatural mystery for young readers, but trust me, the premise is haunting for any age.
So the main idea here, the thing that drives the whole story, is this really terrifying concept called emotional imprints. Think about it like this. Powerful, maybe traumatic experiences can leave a kind of supernatural residue on physical objects. And in this story, fashion, just simple clothes, becomes a direct, totally unfiltered pipeline to the past.
All right, so who are the poor kids who stumble into this whole nightmare? Let's meet our two main characters, Patricia and Sam, right as their journey kicks off.
So their entire world just gets completely turned upside down. After a really bad car accident puts their parents in the hospital, they get sent to live with an aunt they've never even met, this mysterious Aunt Dolores. Suddenly, they're totally isolated, totally alone, in this strange, run-down apartment that's just unsettling. And of course, while they're exploring the dusty, forgotten corners of this place, they find an old trunk. And the quote here really captures it, right? Patricia shivered as she lifted the lid. The contents don't just sit there, they seem to whisper secrets. You just know this thing holds a hidden history. This trunk is basically the story's Pandora's box. And this is where the real horror starts. Because trying on these clothes, it doesn't just unlock memories, it unlocks visions of a deeply, deeply traumatic past. And the connection to the supernatural is immediate. It's physical. The clothes don't just show you the past, they make you feel it. The fabric is described as cold and heavy, like it's literally carrying the emotional weight, the fear of every kid who wore it before. Chilling. So this is the core mechanic of the horror in the book. Every single piece of clothing they put on literally transports them back in time. They become these invisible ghosts, right? Unseen spectators forced to watch this incredibly painful history that their own family has been desperately trying to keep buried. And it just gets deeper from here. The horror isn't just in their heads. These objects, they have the power to warp reality itself. They can turn a familiar hallway, what should be a safe space, into a place of active terror. Those twisting shadows described in the quote, they're not just in Patricia's mind. They are physically manifesting, reflecting the absolute terror of the original owner.
So through all these terrifying flashbacks, the kids start to piece together a puzzle. And what they find is this really stark, tragic contrast. They see the young Dolores of the past, who was this fiercely protective older sister, and then they see the Aunt Dolores they know, this hard, isolated woman who's completely broken. And you realize she's haunted by the very same events they're now being forced to watch. And then, bam! This is it. This is the crucial rule of this world, just laid right out there. It explains everything. These objects, they're not just passive recorders of history, they're active witnesses. They remember. And as the quote says, they never forget what was done while wearing them, good or bad.
Okay, so after being dragged through this absolutely terrifying family history, what's the point? What can we actually learn from all these shadows? Let's pull back for a second and see what lessons are actually hidden inside all this horror.
The climax of the book really delivers its core message. And it does it through the most terrifying object of all, the terrible turtleneck. And the lesson is this: true bravery isn't about not being scared, it's about confronting the unknown and acting in spite of your fear, especially when that horror is hiding in something as ordinary as a piece of clothing.
So what's the ultimate takeaway from all this supernatural terror? It's actually something surprisingly practical. It's about learning to trust your intuition. You know that gut feeling, that primal, subconscious warning system that just knows when something is fundamentally wrong, way before your logical brain has time to process it?
And you can actually develop this skill. The book points to a simple technique called the gut check. It's just 3 steps.
First, you pause. Just take 3 seconds to stop and observe. Second, you sense. Notice what you're physically feeling: tension, unease, comfort. And third, you trust. You acknowledge those feelings as valid data and act on your instincts. It's basically a survival tool hidden inside a horror story.
All right, so how does Creepy Clothes hold up as a whole? As a horror story, as a psychological tale, how effective is it really? Let's get into the final verdict.
Okay, on the plus side, the book's biggest strength is absolutely how it transforms totally ordinary things, hats, shirts, into sources of genuine menace. The whole premise is super creative, the atmospheric writing is solid, and you really feel for the brother and sister.
But on the other hand, its strengths are kind of held back by the formula of the Shivers series. It's only 124 pages long, so the pacing just feels rushed. Really important characters like Aunt Dolores don't get fully developed, and for anyone who's read a lot of horror, the structure is pretty predictable. It keeps it from being truly great.
So, taking all of that into account, the final grade we're giving Creepy Clothes is a 5.7 out of 10. It's a really creative and atmospheric idea for sure, but it's just held back by the constraints of its series.
So if this whole dive into cursed objects and haunted histories has you wanting more, I've got a couple of other books that might just satisfy that craving for the creepy.
You should definitely check out R.L. Stine's The Haunted Mask, an absolute middle-grade classic where a Halloween mask possesses its wearer, and also The Doll in the Garden by Mary Downing Hahn, which is all about uncovering a ghost story through vintage objects. Both of them tread really similar dark territory, perfect for continuing the descent. And that brings us to one last chilling thought to leave you with. The next time you're at a thrift store and you pick up a vintage coat or you find an old piece of jewelry, what memories, what secrets do you think might be waiting inside for you? Hey, for more deep dives into fascinating stories just like this one, make sure you follow and subscribe to The Explainer. Thanks so much for watching.